Welcome to TCNtalks. The goal of our podcast is to provide concise and relevant information for busy hospice and palliative care leaders and staff. We understand your busy schedules and believe that brevity signals respect. And now, here's our host, Chris Comeaux.
Hello and welcome to TCN Talks and the Anatomy of Leadership. Hope whenever you're listening to this, if it's right before your holiday or right after your holiday, happy holidays to you and your family. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, great end to your year. This is a fun show. We started this the last couple of years where we review what we've done over this past year. And of course, in 2024 is our first year having both TCN Talks and the Anatomy of Leadership. So we're going to review with you what our top shows are just very quickly. And then want to do something that's become an end of the year tradition. In fact, a lot of our listeners look forward to it, which we call the one word. And I'll explain what that is in just a couple moments. So let's talk about our shows this year. We actually did about 50 podcasts. If those of you feel like, gosh, I've heard a lot from TCN, Teleios, Chris Comeaux this year. Well, we've actually done 50 podcasts. We did about 30 for TCN Talks. And the focus of TCN Talks is to really speak specifically to hospice and palliative care leaders. What are the things that you probably need to know, you might need to be learning about so you could perform your role and navigate what's coming at us? And then this time last year, we actually released my first book, The Anatomy of Leadership. And it occurred to me the book is about 10 miles wide and about 2 inches deep in terms of here's a meta framework, a table of contents, if you will, about what is leadership. It occurred to me after we released that book, wouldn't it be great to have a podcast by the same title, use that framework and bring amazing guests? And based upon your feedback, based upon what we've heard, our downloads, it feels like we've certainly hit a good chord by bringing great leadership, great speakers, great thought leaders, just adding to your toolbox. And so no matter what type of leader you are, first and foremost, yes, hospice and palliative care leaders, but we found that we've grown even with leaders outside of the hospice and palliative care space. So let's go through TCN Talks. And so no exactly order of priority, although this tends to flow with the number of downloads that we had. We had a very successful show this year called Imagine Heaven with New York Times bestselling author John Burke. And so we did that one as a gift to hospice and palliative care staff. John did a lot of research around near-death experiences, and that we did that show to offer hope and light. So if you'd never listened to that one, go back, check it out. It's one that's become a bit viral because a lot of our listeners pay it forward to friends, family members, used it in a lot of different ways. People may be dealing with some trauma, dealing with grief in their life. It just was a show that resonated with a lot of people. Another show this past year on TCN Talks was The Future of Hospice According to Peter. Always love having Peter Benjamin on the show. He provokes my thought. He provokes a lot of people's thoughts. And so Peter will certainly push your thinking and also probably put a little bit of urgency behind the innovations in your organization. So that was a great show with Peter Benjamin. Again, you could find all of our podcasts on any platform that you listen to, whether that's your iPhone, Spotify, that's the word I was looking for, on Spotify, any platform that you listen to, you could find all of our podcasts. And of course, you could subscribe on our website. And of course, you could also subscribe on YouTube. And so it's available on all those different platforms if you want to go back and find any of these shows. Another show that was a really big hit was What's the Diagnosis of the Problem for a Hospice and Palliative Care Movement. And so that was right at the very end of last year going into 2024 with Dr. Ira Byock. I always love having Ira, and he's just one of those pioneers that's still around, still provoking in a good way. And so that was a really great show. And then we actually had a couple of times Judi Lund Person, but the show that definitely resonated, we called it Judi Lund Person Unleashed. Judi is semi-retired now. Many of us know Judi. She has just been such an amazing regulatory industry hospice movement expert over the years. And so we called that one Judi Lund Person Unleashed. And then a couple of our top news stories of the month. We do those every month just to make sure you don't miss what were the top news stories for the past month. We realize hospice and palliative care leaders are super busy, a lot going on. And so we wanted to make sure each month. And so the February, March, April shows were pretty well downloaded shows. And then another great show was with Dr. Katie Lands, from substitution competition to collaboration. And then Katie and I had to go back and actually append part 2 to that one, because after we taped the show, the very next week, it was announced that the hospice carve-in, VBID carve-in, was actually being sunsetted, and actually will be sunsetted literally right whenever this show is actually going to be aired. And then the last one, this one had Judi back, but also Judi Lund Person with our own Annette Kaiser at TCN. Title of the show was The Need to Know on the 2025 Hospice Wage Index. Of course, those come out usually August, September, October-ish. And so we aired that show later this year, a really top downloaded show, just because we're all kind of curious. If you're like me, when I was still a hospice CEO, I always would take a weekend and go through that wage index because it was so densely packed. And Judi and Annette did a great job in that show, just kind of saying, here are the things you really shouldn't have missed, really hitting those high points, which is why it was a probably well downloaded show. So that hits, we had 30 total shows in TCN Talks, but those are ones that just got a lot of play, a lot of people paying it forward, etc. One of the fastest growing areas of our podcast seems to be a lot of hospice and palliative care board members as well. And each of these shows would be great with your board members. Next up, we've got the anatomy of leadership. And so I've really enjoyed those this year because, again, having that meta framework from my anatomy of leadership book, but bringing great thought leaders, I'm learning. That's where I love the podcast, where I'm learning as well. So hopefully you've checked those out this year, but here are some maybe that you may have missed. Caring for Others with Quint Studer, who's really one of the great mentors in my life. Anytime I get to sit down with Quint, I was thinking really the essence of that show, one of the questions I asked him was one of my biggest takeaways, because Quint's a master about how to create a great culture. But I asked him, the gist of the question was, how do you create a great culture? But yet, what if you have a team member that's not performing where they need to be? But let's say that it's because the team member, at least they have a challenge going on in their life. And I love Quint's answer. And the gist of his answer was, you love them. You serve them in every possible way you can, but you don't relax the standards of your organization. And that is so well put. We talk quite often in our own organization that we talk about mission as mother. And first and foremost, we love our employees. Our team is our greatest asset, but we exist together to serve mother. And the paradox is, when you're serving mother, even when you're dealing with challenging circumstances, you could bring the best of who you are on a day-to-day basis. And paradoxically, it actually provides something for the journey of what you're navigating in the personal life. So that was a huge takeaway for me from that podcast. Next one was Self-Mastery with John Locke. This was one of our early Anatomy of Leadership podcasts. And one of the things that John just talked about is sitting is the new smoking. And he really gave kind of a holistic framework to take care of ourselves, because it's hard to become the best version of yourself, hence the term self-mastery, if you're not working on every aspect of your life. Are you physically fit? Are you mentally fit? Are you working as far as your relationships in your life? What about the spiritual part of your life? And so John just has a lot of great pearls. In fact, I actually, several things I adopted from that meeting, but one of which is how much time I spend at my standing desk versus my sitting desk. And then, of course, our Anatomy of Leadership introduction show, that was actually gotten a lot of play. I think it's a great actually orientation to what we're trying to accomplish with the show. And then another good friend, Meridith Elliott Powell, title of that podcast was Influence. And the key phrase that I walked out of that podcast that I feel like I've probably quoted weekly now is, your network is your net worth. And that's one of many pearls from that conversation with Meridith Elliott Powell around influence and how to use your influence. And then one of my shows that just touched my heart, but it was with Cause and Purpose with Brian Jaudon, a well-downloaded show. In fact, a couple of our team members said it was their favorite podcast of this year. So again, that just gives you kind of a flight, an appetizer, if you will, of our top 5 shows from Anatomy of Leadership. That's 5 of 20. And so just a great body of work out there. We do this in service to you on the TCN Talk side, but also on the Anatomy of Leadership. And we're going to continue both of those as we go forward into 2025. All right, well, this is my final thing. Maybe consider it as a holiday gift to you, your leaders, people in your life. You could actually pay this forward to your family, but it's called One Word. And so I've always been a huge proponent of cause and purpose. My mentor, which I talk quite a bit about him in our Anatomy of Leadership podcast, is Dr. Lee Thayer. And He probably used that word cause and purpose more than anyone I've ever encountered. And of course, he was Stephen Covey's mentor, and Covey was well known about having a personal mission. So you could almost say those words are synonymous. But as I've kind of thought about it, is quite often people will take personal mission to write a mission statement. But your mission statement is your attempt at what is my cause and purpose. And I say attempt at, I'm getting a little gray if those of you are watching on YouTube and this beard here. There is a challenge in telling people what's your cause and purpose, because some people by that are almost paralyzed by that question. And it's a scary question to wrestle with, like, what is my cause and purpose? One of the tactics I adopt, and literally I'll probably be doing this when you're listening to this show, because I try to do it right at the end of the year, pretty close to New Year's Eve. And I actually try to wrestle with the question, and I write down, here's my current understanding of my cause and purpose. And I use those words very intentionally, because it does feel like a daunting exercise. But even if you only get a couple of sentences down, and you use that throughout the year, but at least once a year, try to come back to it. The best analogy I could think of that I'd like to pay forward to you is, you go to school where you are, whatever your current role is within your organization, with your family, all the different roles in your life. Use that statement, paragraph, what it is, whatever you've used to try to document your current understanding of your cause and purpose. And looking now back through the rearview mirror of my own life, it feels almost like if you've ever looked through a telescope and it was blurry at first, and you start kind of dialing in the telescope and it gets clearer and clearer. That is my best way to describe wrestling with cause and purpose, giving myself permission of, I don't exactly know yet, but this is my attempt at what my current understanding is. Looking through the rearview mirror of my life, that has gotten clearer and clearer and clearer. Now, another tool, and I'm going to get to the one word, be patient with me. Another tool that we teach within Teleios and Teleios Collaborative Network is a role description. A role description is a tool that helps you take that understanding of cause and purpose, and then this is the role that I'm playing at this moment. And I'm saying it this way on purpose. That role, like in my case, I'm the CEO of Teleios Collaborative Network. I'm the CEO of Teleios Consulting Group. I'm obviously also a podcaster. I'm also a father. I'm also a husband. Those are all different roles that I play in my life. And I've actually documented that in terms of this is my role description. And I'll give you you may go, what? Yeah, here's a couple of ideas. I'll give you my role description as the CEO of TCN, Teleios, and I'll give you a little snippet of my role description as a dad. So a couple of keywords in my role description at TCN is the maestro, the TCN culture cultivator, the organization composer and chief recruiter, and the chief strategy practicist. Now, all of those words paint a picture in my mind that this is my role. And interestingly, those roles are very well connected to my cause and purpose. And like literally when I am playing that role, I have this kind of vision of this is my role description. Role descriptions are an incredible tool. It is not a job description. It paints the picture of your role. I'll give you one as dad. And so Chris has fathered, loved, and shaped his children to live life in a purposeful, talented, and creative way, to leave the world a better place for them having been here. That gives me a vision of what my role is as being a dad to my incredible 5 children. So those are just 2 examples of a role description, and they're very well connected to my cause and purpose. In fact, if we're drawing this as a diagram, if you picture the cause and purpose as the core, and the role descriptions are kind of outgrowths of that. And you may be going, okay, well then what's that got to do with the one word? I love that question, because what I found is the one word is a beautiful tool that becomes a theme over the year. And by using a one word and having a theme, it has so many beautiful fruits to it. First off, I find it gives me better understanding of my cause and purpose. And it also helps me become better capacitated to fulfill the roles in my life. And so people will usually meditate on it. They may pray about it. Just spend some quiet time of what is my sense of what my one word is this year. We typically do it within TCN. We will actually share our one words with each other. Usually I do a one-page document for my family where we'll actually share, kind of put in bold letters what each of our one word is. And by the way, some of you that are very detail oriented, if you look at some of my past years, like I may have a phrase, like one year my one word was Wisdom Revisited and the Restoration Project. Obviously, I can count, and that is not one word. And so sometimes a phrase actually works for folks. And so we're actually releasing a blog about the one word at the same time. And in that blog, so we'll make sure we have a link to it when we release the actual podcast. There's a great video that the guy who wrote the book, One Word, I think John Gordon was at least related to it. No, it was by Dan Britton and Jimmy Page. But they did a little bit of I think it was like a 1-minute YouTube video, and just a lot of people actually sharing their one word. And so it does come from, I think originally it was a concept and they wrote a book about it. And so we share in our organization that one word. We share it within our family. One of the organizations we work with, Compass Regional Hospice, those guys have just taken it to a different level this year. They actually, a lot of them, not only were creating the one word for their going forward, they also wrote down maybe some negative words or some things they were struggling with in their life. And their amazing HR leader actually created a box, and we may put a picture in when we do the actual podcast release. And on the outside of the box, they did a sticky of their one word. And maybe something they were struggling with as they looked through the rear mirror the past year, they put that, stuffed it in the box. So the outside of the box is all of their one words, and inside the box is things that they were actually kind of struggling with. And so the great thing about that, and I don't know if they've done it yet, but they said at some point in time this year, they were going to take their one words off the box and they were going to burn that box. I love that because I think it's a beautiful metaphor of kind of letting some things behind, some baggage, and your one word is living life out of the windshield of this upcoming year. And so here's what I can tell you. I've probably done this now for 7-8 years. Actually, I have a history in my journal of all of my one words. That theme of what I think that word is supposed to mean throughout the year. So it's living your year with some intentionality, but yet living it in the year, you come to understand that one word at a much deeper level. And then it gives you greater insight around your cause and purpose. So my one word this year was co-author. Last year I released my first book. I thought, okay, it's kind of, maybe I'm going to write another book. Maybe I might write a book with someone else. And of course, as we're recording this at the end of 2024, Hurricane Helene happened in Western North Carolina. That word has come to mean a whole lot of different things. We've been involved in just some amazing opportunities to partner with people, to be out in the community. And so that co-author has come to mean collaboration. It's meant something to me in my marriage. It's meant something to me in my spiritual life. So enough about me. The point of me sharing that with you is having that theme, it almost becomes an adventure, if you will. You know, when we were in school, we used to have to diagram sentences. If you picture the beginning of the word, in fact, I did this in my journal this year. I actually did a mind map. If you've diagrammed sentences in high school, a mind map is kind of like that. Or if you've ever seen like a fishbone diagram, if you could picture that in your mind. So I started my year and actually have in my journal where I put my one word. But throughout the year, I started actually drawing pictures, if you will, via mind map of what that word came to mean to me throughout this year. Now I have this beautiful thing within my journal that kind of unpacks this journey of understanding this past year. And all of that will culminate at the end of the year, just helping me put better understanding of what is my cause and purpose. And myself, a lot of our other team members, we're already starting to pin what we think our one word is for 2025. So that's my challenge to you. Come up with a one word. And you go, well, do I do the one word? Do I do the mission statement? Do I do the role description? Obviously, it's up to you. The cause and purpose is a wonderful thing to wrestle with. Documenting a role description, a wonderful thing to do. And if you'd like a copy of maybe an example role description in my book, The Anatomy of Leadership, in the appendix, there is actually, my role description is actually in there. And I think we may even I think we had a couple other examples as well. So you don't necessarily have to do all those things if you're like, well, I just like to start with one word. That is perfect. And it'd be great if you did it with the team. It'd be great if you did it with your family. At worst, if you did it just for yourself and use it to go on the journey and adventure of this coming year. If you want to share, we'd love to hear what your one word is. Feel free to reach out to us, share that with us. We'd love to just hear from you. Always want to thank our listeners. This is a good opportunity just to wrap and just say thank you. You've made this the top-rated podcast in the hospice and palliative care space, the TCNtalks podcast. We've got a good foothold on the anatomy of leadership. We're swimming in a much bigger pond with that one. If this is a service to you, pay it forward to many other people. We do these podcasts for exactly that reason. We want to give you good wisdom, pearls, tools, things that can help you just lead better, live your cause and purpose better, but also do your job better for those leaders that are in hospice and palliative care. So here, as I always do for TCN Talks, I want to leave you with a quote. This one is from Rumi. I actually got it from Hospice and Palliative Care Today, which is one of our partners and the folks that we get all of our news articles where we do our top news stories of the month. It says, when you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a river of joy. And then I couldn't pick just one, so I picked another one from Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones that you did do. So throw off the bylines or the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. Thanks for listening to TCN Talks. Thanks for listening to the Anatomy of Leadership, and we're looking forward to a great 2025 with you. Be sure to subscribe, pay it forward. Thank you.
Thank you to our TCN Talks sponsor, Dragonfly Health. Dragonfly Health is also the title sponsor for April and November 2024 Leadership Immersion courses. Dragonfly Health is a leading care-at-home data, technology, and service platform. With a 20-year history, Dragonfly Health uses advanced technology and robust analytics to manage durable medical equipment and pharmaceutical services as part of a single efficient solution for caregivers, patients, and their families. The company serves millions of patients annually across all 50 states. Thank you, Dragonfly Health, for all the great work that you do.